My red carpenter's pencil rolls across the conference table and taps Dana Cho's water glass just as my boss claims my work as his own. I wrote every word, Colin says. He says it easily, smiling at the last slide of the Hearth Harbor expansion proposal I spent 6 weeks building. 14 cafe locations glow on the screen behind him. Beneath them is one name, Colin Vale, Director of Growth. Mine is gone. Dana stops the pencil with 2 fingers and looks from it to me. I can't tell whether she's noticed the missing name or is simply waiting for me to retrieve my property. Impressive, she says. Colin puts one hand in his pocket. A labor of love. I stay quiet because the shared file remembers every edit. But that isn't the only reason. Dana slides the pencil back to me. The lacquer has been worn off one flat side, exposing pale wood stained with red grease. It was my mother's before it was mine. She used to tuck it behind her ear when she walked our old warehouse with a clipboard, before Ellison Food Systems had frosted conference rooms and directors who wore Italian loafers to loading docks. Colin advances to the question slide. My name isn't there either. Across the table, Hearth Harbor's facilities director, Luis Ortega, flips through the printed proposal. He pauses at the rollout map I built after 3 nights of comparing permit times, installer capacity, and freight routes. Each opening is staggered so the same 2 crews can move from Charlotte to Richmond without exceeding their overtime cap. Who came up with the 2-wave kitchen sequence? Luis asks. Colin doesn't look at me. I did. My fingers close around the pencil. One answer, that's all it would take. I could say, actually that was mine. I could open my laptop and show them my drafts, my emails, the photographs from site surveys, where I'm standing beside grease traps in borrowed safety glasses while Colin is 3 states away entertaining the client's real estate team. Instead, I write a small red check beside the word commissioning. Dana sees it. Her expression doesn't change, but I know she sees it because she notices everything. During our first site walk, she found a 6-inch discrepancy between the architect's drawing and an existing wall before anyone from the construction team did. She had knelt in a navy suit, hooked a tape measure to the baseboard and said, either the room shrank or the plan grew. Now she asks Colin about commissioning. He gives her my answer almost perfectly. Almost. We'll test each kitchen 48 hours before turnover, he says. The proposal says 72. 48 is enough for heat calibration. It isn't enough if a combi oven arrives with a damaged control board and the replacement has to come from Tennessee. I make another red check. Colin's eyes flick down. The movement is quick enough that Dana might miss it. I don't. By the time the meeting ends, Colin has said I 12 times and we twice. He has not said Mara once. Dana closes her copy. We'll review internally and send questions by Thursday. Perfect. Colin beams as if Thursday is an award ceremony. Anything you need, I'm your guy. Luis looks at me. Including electrical schedules? I oversee the full proposal, Colin says before I can answer. It lands softly. That is Colin's best skill. He can put a hand over your mouth and make it look like he's straightening your collar. In the hallway, he waits until the glass conference room door seals behind Dana's team. What was that? He asks. I put the pencil behind my ear. What was what? The marking. I was taking notes. You were broadcasting disagreement. I was tracking questions. With a red pencil? You looked like a disappointed school teacher. There are no people close enough to hear us, but he lowers his voice anyway. Colin loves privacy. When he's saying something, he'd defend loudly if challenged. You told them you wrote every word. I led the proposal. You attended 4 meetings. Leadership isn't measured by keystrokes. No, the version history measures keystrokes. For half a second, his face empties. Then the smile returns, smaller and more careful. There she is, he says. I was wondering how long it would take. How long what would take? For you to turn a major opportunity into a credit dispute. He opens the conference room door and gathers his laptop, leaving me in the hallway with the catered coffee smell and the first clean certainty that this was planned. Not improvised, not enthusiasm carrying him too far. Planned. My printed cover sheet is still on the table. It had been beneath my legal pad when I came in. Now it sits face down beside Colin's empty chair. I turn it over. Prepared by Mara Ellison, pre-construction manager. A red line runs beneath my name, drawn with my pencil sometime before it rolled away. Colin comes back for his charger. He sees the sheet in my hand. "You weren't meant to bring your own cover page," he says. "It was attached to the draft." "It wasn't in the meeting deck," I noticed. "We need one voice in the room. You used mine." He coils the charger around his palm. Colin is 6 months older than I am, a fact he used constantly when we were younger and now pretends not to remember. Our mothers built the company together, though they had never agreed on what built meant. His mother found customers and negotiated credit lines. Mine counted inventory, scheduled installers, and learned enough about refrigeration to know when a compressor salesman was lying. Colin had inherited his mother's talent for making a transaction feel like friendship. I had inherited a pencil. "We're not doing this here," he says. "You already did it here." The door opens again and Dana steps inside. Colin's whole posture changes. "Forget something?" "My notebook." She retrieves a slim black book from the credenza. Her gaze settles on the page in my hand, then on the line beneath my name. Colin moves between us with graceful efficiency. "We'll get those follow-up materials to you," he says. Dana picks up her notebook. Thursday. The elevator carries her away before I can tell if she read the page. Colin waits until the doors close. "Send me your meeting notes by noon. They're in the shared workspace. Send them to me. So you can put your name on those too?" His jaw tightens. It's the first honest thing his face has done all morning. "You want the operations director role, right?" The question catches me because he knows I do. He also knows I haven't said it aloud since our last argument when he told the owners I was brilliant in the weeds but not ready for executive visibility. That has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this. Directors understand when the company needs a unified front. A unified front has more than one person standing in it. And this is why people think you're difficult under pressure. There it is, the old bruise pressed with one precise finger. A year earlier, Colin had promised a restaurant group that we could deliver 32 custom stainless prep tables in 5 weeks. The fabricator told me 8. I said so during an internal forecast meeting after Colin presented 5 as settled fact. His mother called my tone humiliating. My mother called me afterward and asked why I couldn't have spoken to him privately. The tables took 9 weeks. Nobody ever changed the description of my tone. Colin tucks the charger under his arm. "Hearth Harbor could change this company. Your mother understands that." "My mother hasn't seen that deck. Then maybe don't drag her into it." He walks away. I remain beside the conference room until the motion sensor lights dim around me. The proposal started with a coffee stain. 6 weeks earlier, Dana had placed a marked-up floor plan on my desk with a brown ring over the future dish pit. "Tell me why this won't work," she said. "Most clients asked us to tell them it would." Hearth Harbor had grown from 3 coastal cafes into a regional chain by making expensive things look simple. Walnut counters, green tile, bread displayed in linen-lined baskets. Their proposed expansion was more complicated. 14 sites, 3 states, 6 landlords, 4 architects, and 1 fixed menu that required every kitchen to produce the same charred lemon chicken in the same 8-minute ticket window. I studied the plan. "Your clean dish rack blocks the electrical panel." Dana leaned over my desk. "And your oven door opens into the cook line," I said. "On a slow day, that's annoying. On a busy day, somebody gets hit with 6 sheet pans of roasted vegetables." She smiled. "Louise said I should talk to you." From behind her, Colin said, "That's why Mara's on my team." My team. At the time, I let it pass. For the next 6 weeks, I built the proposal around constraints nobody photographed for the design boards. The Richmond freight elevator stopped running at 10. The Raleigh landlord required all drilling before 7 in the morning. A Charlotte kitchen had a gas meter sized for the previous tenant's sandwich shop, not 2 fryers, a griddle, and a 6-burner range. I spoke to utility engineers, hood manufacturers, installers, mill workers, and a permit clerk who answered only if you called before 8:15. I created a substitution ladder for every long lead item. I persuaded our warehouse supervisor, Ray Bledsoe, to divide a loading zone with yellow tape so Hearth Harbor equipment could be staged by opening wave. Ray had stared at my floor plan, chewing the inside of his cheek. 14 stores in 22 weeks? 24. Sales deck says 22. Sales deck doesn't unload trucks. That's why I like you, Ellison. You bring such joy. He found the tape. Colin participated in his way. He took Dana and her real estate director to dinner. He convinced a reluctant landlord to accept a common hood control package. He negotiated better payment terms with our oven supplier after reminding their vice president how much volume the expansion could generate. He was good at those things. That was what made him dangerous. If he had been useless, everyone would have seen him clearly. On the 5th week, I found him alone in the print room, flipping through my proposal. "This is strong," he said. Praise from Colin usually came with an invoice. "What do you need?" "Can I compliment my cousin?" "You can. You generally don't." He laughed and leaned against the printer. "Dana likes you." Dana likes accurate schedules. She asks for you. She asks whoever answers. That humility must be exhausting. He handed back the draft. My pencil had been clipped to the cover. "Clean up the executive summary," he said. "Make it sound less operational." It's an operations proposal. It's a growth proposal. Bigger horizon. What does that mean in words? It means don't lead with everything that could go wrong. I led with risk controls. Same cloud, friendlier rain. I rewrote the summary 3 times. The night before the presentation, Colin sent the meeting deck at 11:48. I was asleep on my couch with a site plan over my face and woke at 2:13 with a paper cut near my eyebrow. The deck had my sequencing map, my cost model, my rollout language, and Colin's name. I wrote him 1 sentence. "My name is missing from the deck." He answered at 6:02. "Simplified client-facing ownership. We'll discuss after we win." I should have refused to enter the conference room. Instead, I showered, covered the paper cut with makeup, and arrived 20 minutes early carrying my printed cover sheet. That choice follows me home after the presentation. My mother's car is in my driveway. She sits at my kitchen counter with a container of lentil soup and the expression she wears when she has already forgiven me for something I haven't agreed I did. "You need groceries," she says. "I have groceries." "You have capers, mustard, and 3 kinds of seltzer. That's a sophisticated pantry." She smiles, but only briefly. Her eyes move to the red pencil behind my ear. "Meeting went well?" "Colin called you. He said you were upset." "Did he say why?" "He said there was confusion over presentation roles." There wasn't confusion. I set my bag down and take out the printed deck. My mother doesn't touch it. "He left my name off." "I see that." "He told the client he wrote the proposal." Her lips part, then close. That tiny hesitation hurts more than an argument would. "Did you correct him?" she asks. "No." "Good." I stare at her. "Mara, listen to the whole sentence. Good that you didn't make a scene in front of the client. That doesn't mean what he did was right." "He knew you'd say that." "Don't make me part of a conversation I wasn't in. You became part of it when he called you first." She pushes the soup toward me as though this might still be a visit about food. There's a small burn mark on the container lid from her dishwasher's heating coil. Ordinary evidence of an ordinary evening. I want to put my head down beside it. "This contract keeps 40 people working through winter," she says. "Handle Colin, but don't damage the bid." "He stole my work." "I know. Do you?" Her face hardens. "I spent 27 years watching people assume your aunt handled the business while I handled the warehouse because I liked comfortable shoes." "Yes, I know." "Then why are you asking me to swallow it?" Because sometimes you swallow the first thing so you can choose where to put the second. That sounds wise until you're the thing being swallowed. She looks away. I regret it immediately, which doesn't make it less true. After she leaves, I heat the soup and open the shared proposal. The version history is intact. My initials run down the side of the screen in a long blue column. 6 weeks of drafts, hundreds of changes, site notes, schedules, vendor tables, comments from Dana and Luis. Colin's contributions appear mostly in the executive summary and pricing language. Then I notice 3 changes made that afternoon. The second freight consolidation point is gone. The overnight installation window has been cut from 10 hours to 7. The approved oven substitution has been replaced by a cheaper model. I pull up the Charlotte Electrical Survey. The cheaper ovens require more amperage than the panels can support with the rest of the cook line running. At 10:36, I email Colin. The revisions presented today create execution risks that I cannot certify. The substituted ovens exceed available load at 6 sites. The reduced installation window conflicts with landlord access at Richmond and Raleigh. Removing the second consolidation point jeopardizes waves 3 and 4. Please restore the controls in the submitted proposal. I copy our controller and save the email. At 10:51, Colin replies, "Thanks for your input. Going forward, route all Hearth Harbor communication through me. I'll determine what is client relevant." At 10:53, my access to the client email group disappears. I sit in the glow of my laptop holding the old red pencil between both hands. Colin hasn't just taken my name. He is preparing to make me responsible for what he changed. I sharpen the pencil with a utility knife the next morning. The blade peels off a thin red curl and drops it beside my keyboard. I usually do it in the warehouse where nobody cares about shavings, but Ray hasn't unlocked the loading bays yet, and I need something to do with my hands while I wait for Colin to arrive. At 7:14, the elevator opens. He steps out carrying 2 coffees and offers me one. "Oat milk," he says. "No sugar." I look at the cup. "What are you doing?" "Bringing you coffee. You don't know how I take my coffee." I do now. I leave it in his hand. Colin sets it on my desk anyway. "You copied Nina on that email." Nina controls project risk. Nina controls accounting. She also controls what the company agrees to finance. We haven't agreed to finance anything. We quoted payment terms that require us to carry almost $900,000 in equipment before Hearth Harbor's second draw. His mouth tightens. "You know what I mean." I know exactly what the proposal means. I wrote it. Nina Patel's office door opens at the other end of the hall. Colin turns before she can catch the argument. "Conference room, 8:30. Who's invited?" "People who can solve the problem." I'll check my calendar. "You won't see it there. I'm telling you now." He walks off with both coffees. When he reaches his office, he drinks from mine. At 8:29, I enter the small conference room beside estimating. Colin is already there with Nina, our purchasing manager, and Wesley Grant, the estimator who has been trying to become Colin's favorite since the holiday party. Wesley has printed my email. He's underlined the word "cannot." Colin points at it. "That's what we're here to discuss." "The oven load?" I ask. "Your language." The language is accurate. It's absolute. Electric panels are pretty absolute. Wesley smiles into his notebook. Nina takes off her glasses. "Can we address the equipment before the adjective?" She is in her 50s, though she has the calm, preserved patience of someone who has been 60 since college. She joined Vale Ellison before we had an accounting department, when my mother kept invoices in a metal cash box and my Aunt Vivian considered a calculator an unnecessary expense. Colin taps the table. "The alternate oven saves $38,000 across the package and adds electrical work at 6 sites," I say. "Potentially." "Certainly. Based on preliminary surveys, based on panel labels, breaker schedules, and load measurements." Wesley turns to me. "Couldn't the electrician rebalance the panels?" "At 2 sites, maybe. Charlotte South End is already at capacity. Richmond has 1 spare circuit and it isn't large enough. So we upgrade." "Who pays?" He looks at Colin. Colin says, That's a commercial conversation. It becomes an operational conversation when a kitchen can't open. Nina slides my email toward herself. Was the cheaper model listed in the client-approved substitution schedule? No, I say. It's functionally equivalent, Colin says. It cooks the same food. It doesn't draw the same power, use the same hood connection, or fit the millwork opening. Wesley stops smiling. Colin sits back. Fine. Purchasing will confirm. I already asked them to. The purchasing manager clears his throat. Manufacturer's rep is calling at 9. Colin stares at me. You contacted the vendor after I told you to route communication through me? You restricted client communication. The manufacturer isn't the client. Nina's mouth moves at one corner. Colin notices. His face settles into the pleasant expression he uses when he is angriest. Let's be clear about reporting lines, he says. Mara supports growth. Growth makes final commercial decisions. I report to operations. On internal projects, all projects become internal when we sign them. The manufacturer's representative calls at 9. We put him on speaker. He doesn't know he is walking into a fight. He cheerfully confirms everything I wrote, then adds that the cheaper model's production slot has slipped by 3 weeks. What about the original model? Nina asks, reserved through Friday under Mara's hold. Colin looks at me. You placed a hold? 6 days ago. Without approval? With purchasing approval. Holds don't cost us anything until release. The representative says, actually, that hold saved your place. We've had a hotel group asking for the same run. Thank you, Greg, Colin says. We'll call you back. He ends the call. The room goes quiet. It is a small victory, no bigger than the coffee cooling on my desk, but I feel it move around the table. Wesley folds my email so the underlined cannot disappears inside. Colin restores the ovens. He does not restore the freight point or installation window. At 11, an updated staffing sheet appears in our project folder. Wesley is assigned to the Hearth Harbor site surveys I was scheduled to complete the following week. Site surveys pay a field differential. 14 of them would have added enough to my bonus to replace the furnace that had been making a metallic cough every time it started. I walk into Colin's office. He's on the phone with Aunt Vivian discussing dinner reservations. He waves me toward a chair. I stay standing. Yes, 8 is fine, he says. Mara's here. I'll tell her. He ends the call. Sunday at Trattoria Luca, Mom's birthday. You reassign my site visits. I need you focused on internal readiness. You need me away from the client. Wesley's perfectly capable of taking measurements. Last month he recorded a walk-in freezer in inches on a form labeled feet. A mistake you caught before the order. Because I was on the project. Colin opens his laptop. Your role is changing. According to whom? According to the person responsible for winning the account. You're punishing me for documenting risk. I'm protecting the client relationship from someone who has made it clear she doesn't support the proposal. I support the proposal I built. He looks up. That sentence right there. Do you hear yourself? Yes. I don't think you do. He turns the laptop toward me. A draft organization chart fills the screen. His title sits at the top of the Hearth Harbor box. Wesley's name appears beneath client coordination. Mine is under technical support. The box is narrow enough to make the demotion look tidy. You said this account could get me the operations director role. I said directors understand a unified front. And if I let you claim my work, I pass the test. If you help close the account, we all win. You already decided only one of us gets credit. That isn't how I see it. That's because your name is on the slide. He turns the laptop back around. You'll still be eligible for the standard internal bonus. How much? It hasn't been calculated. Field differential? You won't be in the field, so you cut it. I reassigned work. The furnace coughs in my head. I walk out before I tell him about it. I won't let my need become his leverage. Ray finds me in the warehouse at lunch, kneeling inside the yellow tape boundary with 3 equipment schedules spread across a pallet. He steps over a blue painter's tape line and hands me half a turkey sandwich. You look like you're planning an invasion. Richmond is occupying Charlotte. He peers at the labels. 2 combi ovens meant for Richmond have been staged under a Charlotte purchase order. Receiving logged the revised spreadsheet Wesley sent, he says. Did he change the location code? He added a column. Of course he did. Ray crouches beside me. Columns are free. Warehouses are apparently infinite. I take the sandwich. You have a red marker? You're wearing one. I reach behind my ear. The pencil is gone. For one panicked second, I see the conference table, Colin's hand, the red line beneath my name. Then Ray points to the floor. It lies beneath the pallet jack, one flat side pressed against the concrete inches from the front wheel. I pick it up and wipe off the dust. Ray watches me. You all right? Fine. You've sharpened that thing down to a golf pencil. It still works. So does my first wife's Buick. Doesn't mean she should take it on the interstate. I correct the staging labels while Ray calls receiving. Before we finish, Darnell Pike comes through the loading bay carrying a hard hat and a paper bag of boiled peanuts. Darnell has installed commercial kitchens for us longer than Colin has worked for the company. He can level a 60-inch range on a floor that slopes like a boat deck and complain for 9 uninterrupted minutes about cordless tools. He offers the bag to Ray, then to me. Wesley says we've got 7-hour overnight swaps, he says. We don't. Good, because I told him I can violate time or physics, not both. Colin changed the window in the presentation. Darnell stops chewing. He ask you first? No. He ask anybody who owns knee pads? Probably not. Ray looks toward the warehouse office. You writing this down? I hold up the pencil. Not like that, he says. He means somewhere the mark can't be rubbed away. I create an exception log that afternoon. It is an ordinary project control sheet. Date, source, issue, responsible party, required decision, operational effect. Nina approves the format and adds a column for financial exposure. Ray enters the location code mix-up. Darnell documents the minimum time his crew needs to disconnect, remove, set, connect, test, and clean a kitchen package. I attach the landlord access letters for Richmond and Raleigh. Colin sees the log within an hour. He calls Nina first. Through the wall, I hear only his side. I'm asking whether this is necessary. A pause. No, I'm not asking you to hide anything. Another pause. That's a loaded way to say it. At 5:40, he appears at my desk. We don't need a litigation file, he says. It's a project log. You copied 4 departments. They own 4 parts of the project. You're creating a paper trail to make me look reckless. I'm creating a decision trail so people know what they're supposed to execute. You know exactly what you're doing. Yes. The answer holds between us. Colin glances toward Nina's closed door. Delete the financial exposure column. Nina added it. Then I'll talk to Nina. You already did. He rubs one thumb over the edge of my desk. You're forcing me into a position I don't want. What position is that? Managing you formally. If you want something changed, put it in writing. His hand stops. For years, Colin and I have fought in doorways, parking lots, family kitchens, and the narrow corridor outside the restrooms at our annual holiday dinner, places where words disappear as soon as the air moves. He gives my desk one light tap. Sunday, he says. Don't bring this to dinner. At Trattoria Luca, Aunt Vivian seats Colin beside her and me across from my mother. She wears a white silk blouse that survives red wine, tomato sauce, and Colin's kiss on her shoulder. My mother wears navy and checks her phone whenever the conversation approaches work. Nina isn't family, but Aunt Vivian has invited her because she has handled the company books for 23 years, and because Vivian likes an audience when telling old stories. Halfway through dinner, she raises her glass. To Colin, she says, for bringing us the biggest opportunity we've had in a decade. My mother's eyes meet mine. Colin lifts his glass. We're not there yet. You will be. Strong team behind me, behind him. Even at dinner, he places us in a line. Aunt Vivian turns to me. And Mara, of course. Colin tells me you've been very thorough. Nina drinks water. I built the operating proposal, I say. The table stills by degrees. Forks slow, eyes shift. Aunt Vivian smiles. Well, there you are. A family effort. Colin told the client he wrote every word. My mother sets down her fork. Colin folds his napkin. I told you not to bring this here. You brought it here when you accepted the toast. Aunt Vivian looks at him. Did you say that? I was establishing clear authorship for the pitch. Whose authorship? I ask. Can we please not do this on Mom's birthday? You took my name off the deck. My mother says quietly, Mara. It is warning and plea in one word. Aunt Vivian reaches for the wine bottle. Your mother and I never worried about whose name was on what. My mother looks at her. You didn't. The silence that follows is different. Vivian's hand remains around the bottle. My mother studies the tablecloth as though she wishes she could pull the words back without surrendering their truth. Colin laughs once. Great. Now we're excavating the founding of the company. Nina speaks for the first time. The authorship is documented. Everyone looks at her. She dabs the corner of her mouth. So are the changes. Aunt Vivian's expression sharpens. What changes? Not tonight, Colin says. The server arrives with a slice of tiramisu carrying one candle. We sing. Vivian blows it out. Conversation limps towards safer subjects, but the old story at the table has cracked open, and none of us can stop looking into it. On Monday morning, Dana sends a question about freight staging to the client group. I know because Luis forwards it to me from his personal company address with one line. Dana said you'd have the real answer. I respond with the approved schedule, the warehouse capacity chart, and a photograph of Ray standing inside the yellow-taped staging zone, holding a sign that reads, Wave 3, although his expression suggests a hostage video. I copy Colin. 8 minutes later, Dana replies directly. Thank you, Mara. This is the level of operational detail we expected from the proposal. Colin comes out of his office before I finish reading. He has the email open on his phone. You went around me. Luis came to me. And you answered. He asked about my schedule. Our schedule. I glance at his screen. Check the version history. His face changes again, that small blankness before the mask returns. Then he smiles. Actually, he says, I think it's time we clean that up. Clean what up? The working file. Too many comments, too many versions, too many people freelancing. It's the client's shared workspace. It's our document. It's both. Colin steps closer and lowers his voice. Convert the final proposal to PDF. Archive the drafts. Lock the workbook so all changes come through me. The cost model is linked to the equipment schedule. Then unlink it. If Hearth Harbor changes an opening date or a model, the numbers won't update. They don't need to play with our numbers. The finance team asked for scenario access. I'll handle finance. He stands there waiting for me to obey. I pick up the red pencil and draw a line beneath the freight staging question on my printout. Send me the request. I just gave it to you. Send it in writing. You've become very brave with witnesses nearby. I look past him. Nina's door is open, but her chair is empty. There's no one nearby. He looks too. The realization irritates him more than if I had trapped him. Have the PDF to me by lunch, he says. I create the PDF. I don't delete or alter the source files. At 12:07, Colin emails me. Please confirm the final client-facing PDF replaces all prior working versions. I answer. The PDF reflects the current presentation. The shared source remains the controlled working document because it contains active client comments, linked schedules, and required revision history. 3 minutes later, he calls Wesley into his office. By 2, Wesley has uploaded a folder called Final Client Proposal. Inside it are the PDF, an unlinked copy of my workbook, and a blank text file labeled Version Notes. Ray comes upstairs holding a packing slip. What's a version note? A small grave where context goes to die. Sounds efficient. He drops the slip on my desk. 2 refrigeration racks are shipping direct to Raleigh now. They can't. Glad we agree. Raleigh won't have a dock supervisor until next month. They're supposed to come here for inspection. Wesley approved direct freight, saves one handling charge. I open the purchase order. Colin's approval appears beneath Wesley's change. Carrier already picked them up? 7 this morning. The equipment is somewhere on Interstate 40. Each rack is a steel frame crowded with compressors, copper lines, valves, and controls. If either arrives damaged at an unfinished site, there will be no one qualified to inspect it before the delivery receipt is signed. Hidden freight damage can turn a warranty claim into a 6-figure argument. I call the carrier's dispatch line. The representative finds the trucks and agrees to divert them to our warehouse for an added fee. How much? Ray asks. $860. Cheaper than a compressor rack in a mud puddle. I enter the exception in the project log and attach the original staging schedule. Colin comments before the trucks arrive. Unnecessary diversion initiated without growth authorization. Nina replies beneath him. Diversion protects company-owned equipment and follows the current project control plan. He doesn't answer. The trucks pull into our yard at 4:15. One refrigeration rack has a bent corner where a strap was over-tightened. Ray circles the damage with chalk. Darnell photographs it from 4 angles, then photographs the intact shipping crate around it. Hidden before unloading, he says. Carrier's problem. Ray nods toward my pencil. Put your little red blessing on it. I mark the packing slip and initial the inspection. The damage is repairable. The carrier accepts liability. We lose 1 day instead of weeks. The next morning, Colin mentions the save during a call with Dana. Our freight controls caught an issue before it reached the site, he says through the glass wall of his office. Exactly why I designed the consolidation process the way I did. I'm standing at the copier with Darnell. He hears it too. Darnell slowly turns his head. Want me to go in there and ask him what a compressor does? No. I could ask easy ones first. I laugh before I can stop myself. Colin looks through the glass. For a moment, the 3 of us stay exactly where we are. Colin with a headset and my sentence in his mouth. Darnell holding a roll of drawings. Me with one hand on the copier lid. Then Colin closes his blinds. At lunch, Nina asks me to walk with her. We circle the block behind the warehouse, passing the machine shop, the tire distributor, and a drainage ditch full of wind-blown receipts. Nina wears low heels that click steadily against the sidewalk. He asked me whether the source file could be purged under our document retention policy, she says. What did you tell him? That active proposals are retained through contract, close, and audit. Did he say why? He said version clutter creates commercial risk. That sounds like Colin after 3 minutes with a thesaurus. Nina almost smiles. I also told him the client owns its workspace activity. I stopped walking. He tried to delete it. He asked a policy question. I answered a policy question. You're protecting him. I'm protecting the truth from turning into a claim I can't support. A truck changes gears on the avenue, drowning out everything for a few seconds. When it passes, Nina says, "You're doing the same thing." I'm trying. No, you're hoping the record will speak before you have to. I look down at the broken asphalt. A red carpenter's pencil is excellent for floor plans because the flat shape keeps it from rolling off a table, except when the table is glass. What do you want me to do? I ask. I want you to decide what you're asking for. Credit, his job, your title, a clean exit? I want him to stop. That's a boundary, not an outcome. We reach the warehouse driveway. Nina turns to face me. Colin thinks this ends if Hearth Harbor signs. Vivian thinks it ends if the family eats together. Your mother thinks it ends if the company is safe. Those are 3 different endings, and none of them includes making you whole. What ending do you want? I want the company to survive its owners. She walks back inside. I remain in the sun beside the drainage ditch until my phone buzzes. Dana has invited Colin, Nina, and me to a cost review session. Colin declines on my behalf. I accept on my own. He appears at my desk holding his phone before the calendar confirmation finishes loading. I said I'd handle finance. You don't own my calendar. I own the client relationship. No, they invited me. As technical support. The invitation says proposal lead. His eyes move across my face, looking for something he can use. "You're enjoying this," he says. "What?" "Making me the villain. You took my name off my work, and now every typo I make is a moral event. Sending refrigeration equipment to an unattended construction site wasn't a typo. It was a cost decision. It was a bad one." He leans down, palms flat on my desk. "You have any idea what happens if we don't win this? Ray loses the staging hours. Darnell's crew sits idle in January. We've already extended vendor commitments. I'm trying to keep people working while you make sure everyone knows where each paragraph came from. Then stop changing the parts that keep the contract profitable. This company cannot grow if every risk gets a veto. It can't grow if sales pushes the cost of its promises onto operations." His face reddens. "You sound just like your mother." The insult surprises me because he means it as one. I put my pencil down. "Get your hands off my desk." He straightens. People are watching now. Wesley from his cubicle, purchasing through the interior window, Ray in the corridor with a scanner in his hand. Colin buttons his jacket. "Attend the meeting," he says, "but I do the talking." The cost review begins with 5 people from Hearth Harbor and 3 versions of the same number. Their finance director, Simone Keller, shares her screen. "Your PDF says the equipment package is $4.8 million. The workbook says $4.76. The summary tab says $4.71 if we move 2 openings. Which one governs?" Colin smiles. "The PDF. "Then why did you provide a live workbook?" "For transparency. It isn't linked to the current equipment schedule. We simplified it for review." Simone looks unimpressed. "You disconnected the assumptions." Dana turns to me. "Mara was the original model dynamic?" "Yes." "Can it be restored?" "It still exists in the shared working file." Colin cuts in, "which contains obsolete language. It contains current vendor pricing and the approved substitution ladder," I say. "The PDF changed the freight structure without flowing the added handling and overtime into the summary." Simone leans toward her camera. "How much?" "Between 62 and 84,000, depending on final opening dates." Colin's smile holds, but a pale crescent appears around his mouth. "That's a conservative exposure," he says. "We have room in contingency." "We reduced contingency in the PDF," I say. Silence. Dana glances between us. "Who authorized the disconnected model?" "I did," Colin says, "to prevent draft assumptions from being mistaken for commitments." Simone says, "I can't recommend a proposal whose total changes depending on which file I open. We'll reconcile it today." "I need the linked version," she says, "with its assumptions and revision record." Colin looks at me. It's the first time he has needed something from me in front of the client since he removed my name. "I can restore the links," I say. "Good," Dana says. "Mara, please own that process." After the call, Colin shuts the conference room door. "You embarrassed me. You told me to attend. You contradicted me in front of finance. The numbers contradicted you." He picks up the conference phone, moves it 2 inches, then moves it back. "I'm taking you off the bid." "You can't. Dana just assigned me the model." "I'll tell her there's an internal resource conflict." "Meaning?" "Meaning your workload prevents you from continuing." "What workload? You reassigned my site visits." His eyes settle on me. He knows I have him, and he hates me for making him know it. "Go home," he says. It's 2:30. "You're clearly not in a productive state." I open my laptop. Put that in writing. He leaves without doing it. I restore the linked workbook before 5 and document every assumption in plain language. Simone tests 3 opening sequences. Each one changes freight, storage, labor, and cash timing exactly as it should. At 5:12, Dana writes, "This works. Please preserve the active links for final review." Colin replies before I can. "Glad the tool I developed is giving you the flexibility intended." I stare at the sentence until the words stop looking like language. Then another email arrives, this one from my mother. Dinner tonight? Just us. She chooses a diner near her house, the kind with laminated menus and pie rotating behind glass. When I arrive, she already has coffee. I talked to Vivian, she says. Did Colin ask you to? No, I wait. She thinks you're trying to damage his standing before the owners review his promotion. He's doing that himself. She believes he's protecting the account. What do you believe? My mother opens a packet of sugar, pours half into her coffee, and folds the rest closed. I believe I taught you to let your work speak for you because that was the only choice I thought I had. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I can give tonight. The waitress brings 2 menus. My mother doesn't open hers. Your aunt and I built a company out of very different talents, she says. I told myself it didn't matter that hers were easier to see. Then people started calling her the founder, singular. Why didn't you correct them? Because every time I considered it, there was payroll, a loan renewal, a supplier threatening to put us on hold. There was always a practical reason to wait. She turns the folded sugar packet over. Waiting became my personality. I look at her hands. The joints are wider than they used to be. One thumbnail still has a dark line where a warehouse shelf caught it months ago. Will you support me? I ask. She presses the fold flat. I'll support the record. It isn't what I wanted. It is more than she has ever offered. The final client review is scheduled for Friday. Dana asks for the shared proposal, the linked workbook, the vendor schedule, and the exception log. Colin adds a new slide to the deck Thursday night. Implementation controls created by Colin Vale. The slide contains my freight checkpoints, my landlord access matrix, Ray's staging plan, and Darnell's testing sequence. I print it in the empty office. My red pencil makes a clean line beneath Colin's name. Then I place the slide on top of the original cover sheet and carry both into Nina's office. Don't let me lose these, I say. She opens the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet and puts them inside. You won't need paper, she says. Maybe I do. Friday morning, Colin is already in the large conference room when I arrive. The final deck is loaded. My name appears in small type beneath technical support. He looks at the red pencil behind my ear. You planning to grade me again? I brought a spare. Dana and her team enter with laptops instead of printed proposals. Simone sits beside her. Louise takes the chair across from me. Colin begins the presentation. For 40 minutes, he performs competence assembled from other people's work. He explains Ray's staging controls, Darnell's overnight sequence, Nina's financial exposure column, and my linked model. Each time someone asks a question, his answer arrives half a second before mine would have. Then Dana reaches the slide with his name over my implementation controls. She reads it carefully. Colin, she says. Before we move to pricing, I want to clear up one point about authorship. He smiles. Of course. Dana rests both hands on the table. Who built the original proposal? Colin doesn't hesitate. I did, with input from the broader team, obviously. Every word? His eyes move toward me, then back to her. I'm accountable for every word. That wasn't my question. The room becomes so quiet I can hear the air vent clicking as it cools. Colin smiles. I led authorship. Mara provided technical support, Nina advised on financial controls, and our field team contributed implementation details. That's how collaborative proposals work. Dana nods as though he has confirmed something. Then she asks, in the same tone she used when questioning a 6-inch wall discrepancy, could you open the version history? Colin's hand remains on the presentation remote. I'm sorry? The version history on the shared proposal. The working drafts aren't relevant to the final commercial offer. I think they are. We consolidated a lot of internal material. You'd be looking at comments, incomplete language, rough calculations. That's all right. He glances at Simone. Finance has the linked model. Simone closes her laptop halfway. Dana asked for the proposal history. Colin sets down the remote. Mara has been managing the workspace. There it is, the turn. If the record is clean, he wrote it. If the record is messy, I managed it. Dana opens her laptop. We have access. She clicks through the Hearth Harbor workspace while Colin stands beside the screen with nowhere useful to put his hands. I feel the red pencil behind my ear. Its sharpened point touches my hair when I breathe. Dana opens the proposal and selects the file details. A panel appears on the shared screen. The first version is mine, Mara Ellison, 6:42 a.m. Then another, Mara Ellison, 9:17 p.m. Mara Ellison, 5:58 a.m. 6 weeks of entries line up in blue and gray. My drafts, my site schedules, my vendor tables, my responses to Luisa's comments, my load calculations for Charlotte. Colin's name appears on pricing language, the executive summary, and a handful of edits where risk controls disappear. Dana opens a version from the week before our first presentation. My cover page fills the screen, prepared by Mara Ellison, pre-construction manager. She compares it with the version saved at 11:31 the night before the meeting. My name is gone. Colin's replaces it. The edit takes 4 seconds. Dana opens the next change. The second freight consolidation point disappears. Then the 10-hour installation window becomes 7. Then my approved oven substitution is overwritten with the cheaper model. Luis leans forward. That's the oven we couldn't power. Yes, I say. Colin grips the back of his chair. You're looking at normal commercial revisions. Dana opens my comment attached to the original oven schedule. Retain specified model. Alternate exceeds measured load at 6 sites and conflicts with millwork opening. The comment is dated 5 days before Colin's change. Simone asks, why was this removed? We were testing savings. Why did the PDF retain the savings but not the electrical cost? The cost hadn't been validated. It was excluded, I say. Colin turns. Mara, my name sounds like a warning in his mouth. Dana looks at him. Let her answer. The disconnected workbook removed the linked electrical allowance, I say. It also removed added handling and overtime after the freight and installation changes. Simone reopens her laptop. That accounts for the gap between the 3 totals. Yes, Colin sits down. This is exactly why authorship is the wrong frame. A proposal changes. Teams revise. I made decisions based on the information available. Dana scrolls farther. My answers to her comments appear one after another. Each begins under my initials and ends in the language Colin later presented as his own. She opens the implementation controls section from the slide behind him. The paragraph about freight checkpoints first appears in my draft. Ray's staging plan enters through a comment I accepted. Darnell's overnight testing sequence is attached to my field notes. Nina's exposure column is added after Colin objects to the exception log. Dana closes the panel. I asked, who built the original proposal? She says. You said you did. I led the team responsible for it. At our first meeting, you said you wrote every word. He exhales through his nose. That was shorthand. For what? He has answers for resistant landlords, skeptical buyers, late vendors, and banks reconsidering credit. I have watched him build bridges from nothing but eye contact and certainty. This time, he can't find the first plank. Dana turns to me. Why didn't you correct him then? Everyone waits. Because he was my boss. Because he was my cousin. Because our mothers had spent decades teaching us that the company was a third parent whose needs came before ours. Because I had watched my mother turn silence into a professional skill and then wear it so long she forgot it could come off. I thought the work would protect itself, I say. Dana looks at the version panel again. It almost didn't. The sentence lands without cruelty, which makes it harder to avoid. She closes her laptop. We're pausing the award. Colin leans forward. Dana, the operating plan is sound. Parts of it are. I don't know which price is real, and I don't know whether the person presenting a control will preserve it after signature. I can reconcile every number by Monday. This isn't only a math problem. He tries twice more, first with schedule risk, then vendor reservations. Dana listens, asks precise questions, and refuses to be hurried. Before Hearth Harbor's team leaves, she tells Nina what they require for reconsideration. one reconciled commercial offer, named ownership for every implementation function, direct access to operations, and a governance structure that prevents commercial changes from bypassing cost and field review. At the door, Luis stops beside me. "For what it's worth," he says, "the two-wave sequence is excellent." "Thank you. I suspected it was yours." "Why?" Colin kept calling commissioning final startup. I laugh, one short sound that feels strange in my chest. When the elevator doors close, Colin turns toward me. "You could have stopped that." "How?" "You could have explained the context." She read the context. "You let a client humiliate me." I take the pencil from behind my ear and set it on the table. "You left my name off the deck. You stood right there and said you wrote every word." So this was revenge. This was a file menu. His face twists before he catches it. "You've been waiting for this." "I've been working." Aunt Vivian arrives 20 minutes later. Colin must have called her from the hallway. My mother comes with her, still wearing the navy jacket she uses for supplier meetings. Nina brings us into the small conference room. Vivian doesn't sit. "How bad?" "The award is paused," Nina says. "Can we save it?" "Yes, at a lower margin and with structural conditions." Vivian looks at Colin. "What happened?" He tells the story in a way that is almost true. Dana became fixated on drafts. Simone misunderstood exploratory pricing. I contradicted him publicly. Internal disagreements made us appear unstable. My mother listens until he says, "Mara's been building a case against me for weeks." "She built the proposal," my mother says. Colin looks at her. "That isn't the point. It's the first point." Vivian closes her eyes briefly. "We can sort out credit after we secure the work." "No," I say. The word stops her. I place both hands on the table. They are steadier than I feel. "If you want me to repair the proposal and lead implementation, my title is Director of Pre-Construction and Operations." In writing. I approve equipment substitutions, freight plan changes, and field sequence changes before they reach the client. Nina approves any change that moves cost between departments or uses contingency. Vivian stares at me. "You're negotiating with your own family while the contract is at risk?" "I'm negotiating employment terms with the owners of the company." My mother looks down, but I see the corner of her mouth move. Colin gives a disbelieving laugh. "And what happens to me?" "You sell." "I'm director of growth." "Then grow something we can deliver." He pushes back from the table. Vivian says his name and he stops. Nina opens her folder. Hearth Harbor also wants separated commercial and operational authority. Mara's terms align with that. "This is extortion dressed up as governance," Colin says. "It's a job description," I tell him. "You've been saying I need one." Vivian sits at last. We spend 3 hours in that room. The company absorbs the freight corrections and restores enough contingency to make the schedule honest. The margin drops. Colin loses the commission attached to the original profit target because that target depended on costs he removed. His promotion review is suspended. He remains Director of Growth with the authority to negotiate business and none to rewrite operational controls alone. I get the title, the decision rights, and a revised bonus tied to successful openings rather than site visit mileage. Then I add one more term. Family concerns don't come through my mother. Vivian frowns. What does that mean? It means if Colin has a performance issue with me, he addresses me and documents it. He doesn't call her. You don't call her. She isn't my supervisor. My mother lifts her head. I turn to her. And you don't ask me to accept something at work to keep dinner comfortable. Pain passes across her face. Then she nods. All right. Colin signs last. Hearth Harbor restarts the review the following week. Dana does not offer reassurance. She tests the new structure with change requests, price scenarios, and a proposed schedule compression. I reject the compression and give her a less dramatic way to recover 9 days through staggered millwork releases. She accepts it. We win 11 of the 14 locations, with the remaining 3 contingent on performance. It is less revenue than Colin promised and better work than we could have delivered under his promise. Family dinners become smaller. Vivian invites my mother without inviting me. Colin speaks to me through scheduled meetings and emails so polished they seem laminated. For several months, every exchange carries the shape of the conference room inside it. He also sells well. That is the irritating truth. With boundaries around his authority, he becomes more careful about what he promises. Twice, he brings me into pricing conversations before the client sees a number. The first time, he does not look at me when he says, "Mara owns implementation." The second time, he does. The first Hearth Harbor Café opens on a cold morning in Richmond. Darnell runs the ovens through their final cycle at 5:12. Ray checks the delivery log while drinking coffee from a paper cup too small for his hand. Luis walks the line with me, testing doors and clearances. The combi oven reaches temperature on the correct circuit. At 6:45, Dana finds me beside the walnut service counter. She carries a cardboard plan tube. "This belongs to you," she says. Inside is the original floor plan from our first site walk, the one with the coffee ring over the dish pit. My marked cover sheet is clipped to it. Prepared by Mara Ellison, pre-construction manager. Dana has crossed out the old title and written Director of Pre-Construction and Operations beneath it. My red carpenter's pencil rests under the clip. "I think Nina put that in my document box by mistake," she says. She doesn't make many mistakes. No. Across the kitchen, Darnell calls that he needs me to verify the commissioning sheet. I tuck the pencil behind my ear. It is barely longer than my finger now, worn flat, sharpened down, still leaving a clean red line. Then I write my name.